We got a new phone from our friends over at Poco, and this is the new M6 Pro, and this is, I believe, the global version. I'm not 100% sure if the M6 Pro has been available elsewhere, but as of today, it should be available everywhere. So what we're going to do is take a look at what comes in the box. After that, I'm going to take the phone and go run a bunch of benchmark tests on it to see how it actually performs. Then I'll take some photos and videos with it to see how the camera performs, because let's be honest, that's one of the reasons that a lot of us upgrade our phones nowadays. And then what we'll do is just give you our final thoughts on if we think this is a good purchase. So first off, let's take a look at what comes in this here box. This is the Poco M6 Pro, and just like a lot of Poco phones, it's going to come in a variety of different colors, as well as it's going to come in a variety of different specs in regards to physical drive space, as well as the amount of available memory that's in the phone. I honestly have no idea which one we got. We may be able to tell by looking at the box. This is the M6 Pro Blue. Look, blue. 12 gigs RAM, 512 gigs of storage. So I think this is pretty good. Half a terabyte of storage. Yeehaw! That's excellent. All right, let's crack it open. 12 gigs of RAM. We should be able to do some stuff in it. I'm really curious to see how this does in a lot of, let's say, gaming, as well as I think this phone, in regards to the camera, even has some actual optical image stabilization, which is kind of nice for those of us that want to use this as a camera. Pretty traditional orange box that you get with the Poco phones. I'm curious to see this blue is what I'm curious to see. You're gonna get your SIM card removal tool, which is excellent. And just like a lot of the Poco phones, you're gonna get a little user manual, another user manual, but, oh, this is different. Usually you get a clear case with the Poco phones. That's gray. Oh, that's nice. And look at the big cutout. That is a huge cutout on the back. Now, I'm wondering if it's cut out so big because of a color on the back, or if the whole camera module is using that space. Well, we'll put that to the side because that's curious. And this definitely has a bit of a different feel than some of the other Pocos. It's got a little bit more of, at least for taking it out, it's got a little bit more of a square feel to it, like a little bit more of a harder edges, which I actually like. Let's see what else is in here. This is gonna come, it is a global version, but for those of us in North America, just realize you may get it with European plugs, but not hard to adapt. This is a 67 watt charger, which is what this phone can actually charge at, 67 watts. So it should be able to charge nice and fast. Now, I do believe there are some other Poco phones, some higher end Poco phones that can charge a bit quicker, but 67 watts, that's awesome. You are going to get your traditional, and it's a nice long cable, thank you Poco, USB-A to USB-C, which is good. And I think, is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, look how far the cameras extrude. Oh, I like that. That is a lovely color, number one. Check out that color. Isn't that nice? Look at the size of the cameras on those. See the lenses? They are out there. My goodness. And I believe, yeah, 64 megapixels. Wow, that's large. I have to say though, I like the whole shape. I like the black edges going to the blue. This is coming off, whatever this is. That's definitely not sticking on there for long. Oh, yes. I like that color for sure. It's going to be your flash. Now, they always have, and I don't 100% know the specs. What we will do is after I go take some pictures, I will kind of let you know the specs of the cameras. But I know that it has 64 megapixel traditional camera. I think it has an ultra wide, which again, lower resolution. It could be a 5 or an 8 or something like that. And then it has a macro camera. And the Pocos almost always have a 2 megapixel. I still would like to see them raise that because 2 megapixels I find is just too small for just about anything. You are going to have a flash, of course, on the back, so that's going to be a flash or just a video light. The camera on the front is right here, and that camera there is going to be, I believe, again, I'll verify it, I believe it's a 13 megapixel. Anyways, let's just go through the startup phase just to make sure this has some charge, just so we can see it. All right, we have some battery, which is excellent. And it does look like it has a screen protector on it, which is also really good, already installed. I like that square look. It feels, I don't know, I use an iPhone a lot, so this feels very familiar. Nice speakers. It does look like it has, there's your speaker on the bottom, there's your microphone, your USB-C port, and a speaker on the top. So if you are holding it like in movie mode, or if you were like watching TV or movie or something like that, you are going to get right and left speakers. And it is using their own, basically I think it's a skin, it's the MIUI that you use. I believe this is running, I'm not sure if it's running Android 13, but we'll check just to verify. What I'm going to do here is go through and do all the setup. You guys don't necessarily need to watch me do all this, but I want English, United States. I'm going to go through the setup. Again, what I'm going to do is run some benchmark tests on it. We'll go take some photos, and we'll be back afterwards to talk about our thoughts.
Okay, so I've been playing around with this phone, and as you'll see, I do have it in the case right now. I'm really quite enjoying this phone. To be honest with you, I really do like the shape, and I don't know if you can see it. It does have a fingerprint scanner, like in screen. I like it too because you may be able to see this. See, it lights up when you touch it. I don't know if any other phones do that. I'm not necessarily a big Android user, but I do think that is very cool. I did a few benchmarks on this. Now there are a few benchmarks that I couldn't get to work for some reason. That kept saying that I couldn't connect to the server. That I don't know. Anyways, the first one that we tried was Geekbench, and we did try the CPU and the GPU test. As you can see here with the CPU, we are running Android 13. So we have 6 cores at 2 gigahertz, 2 cores at 2.2 gigahertz. We're running an ARM version 8. And when we actually did the test, we got a single core score of 735 and a multi-core score of 2011. So again, use those numbers to put up against other phones that you may be interested in. You know, price versus performance may be something that can help you with your decision. We also did the GPU test. Again, here we are looking at a 1080 by 2400 resolution screen, 393 display PPI, and we got a GPU OpenCL score of 1282. So not going to be like flagship score by any means, but we are coming in around, you know, a mid-level smartphone. So again, if you look at where this phone was designed to be, it's fitting nicely into that area. We did want to run some Cinebench tests, but again, this was one of the scores one of the apps that we just couldn't get to function for some reason. But we did try PC Mark, and this is something for those that use day-to-day applications, so word processing, photo editing, video editing, and just using the internet and email, etc., etc. Right now, we are looking at a 10,200 score. I'll be completely honest, this is a score that the number can, you know, if it was up a little higher or down a little higher, probably really hard to actually notice a difference when you and I are using this phone day to day. Again, I've been using this phone since this morning. Usability of everything, like it's really smooth, nothing staggers. It boots up nice and quick. It's got a nice bright screen. It is 120 hertz AMOLED display, so it's super smooth if you put it into the 120 hertz mode. Again, it is running Android 13. And right out of the box, at least for me, everything was updated, of course, except for some of the apps that you and I may have downloaded via Google. In regards to gaming, this has, again, plenty of power to play, I would say, the majority of games. Now, if you're a competitive phone player, if that's actually a thing, then, of course, you're going to be using a flagship phone. But I had the opportunity to go and play Diablo Immortal on this phone. And from start to finish, I played for probably 15-20 minutes on it. I had no stuttering at all. The speakers actually were surprisingly good on this phone. So I was very pleased with the sound that came out of it. It actually has some really nice low end. Again, was surprised for a phone in this category. But zero complaints. Loaded up nice and fast. Everything worked really well. Super pleased. Really good. The other game that I play is just something that I try on occasion, and it's Game Loft's Asphalt 9. It's one of those games that we just test on every phone that we get, and again, this thing ran without an issue. Nice smooth frame rates. It was using the accelerometer, so again, it was very, very responsive. No problems. The screen had all the touch interface working really good. It was very quick response. Can't really tell you a whole lot more except that it worked. It worked very well. No issues at all. One other, totally forgot, one other benchmark that we test, and I had never even really heard of this benchmark test, and it was one that was actually on the phone. And it's called Performance Test, I believe, Performance Test for Android. And I had it on a bunch of my phones. The bonus is, of course, when you run this, it actually comes up with some information, which I will put over here. So you can see things like your hard drive speed, your RAM speed. It does some 3D and 2D benchmark tests. So again, I will put all these scores up on the side here. You guys can see that and at least take that information and compare it to some of the phones that you may be looking at in comparison to this one. Last thing for me, of course, is the camera. It is a 64 megapixel camera. I'm actually going to just bring up some specs here. So rear camera on this is a 64 megapixel main camera, it says, with optical image stabilizer. It has an ultra wide 8 megapixel camera, and again, a 2 megapixel macro camera. I will put some photos up here. The main camera actually shoots, it's quite nice. It's a quite nice of a camera. I shot outdoors with it. I shot some stuff indoors. It seems to have the ability to do brights and lows, so its dynamic range is pretty good. It has a built-in HDR mode, so if you use that, that's going to help a fair bit. 8 megapixel when you go to the ultra wide. Here's a nice ultra wide photo for you guys to take a look at. You can see the difference. Now it also has a telephoto. Now that telephoto that's in the software, my guess is it's just cropping into, it may be cropping into the 64 megapixel sensor, or it may be cropping into the 8. I'm not 100% sure how it's doing it, but it does have that feature in the camera app. And then you get the 2 megapixel macro. It functions, again, I'm not a huge fan of it only being 2 megapixels. The bonus nowadays is if you're someone like me, and there are a lot of up-resing pieces of software out there. If you're a Photoshop user, for instance, you can actually put it in and do like a super zoom on it to help get that 2 megapixels to be higher, which can definitely help. I'd like to see them raise that 2 megapixel maybe into a 5. That would be something that I would like. 16 megapixel front-facing camera, so that's actually pretty good. And the other thing I did test with it too is it has a portrait mode on it. Portrait mode is decent. You know, you can definitely see the cutout of it, but it functions. It functions in fairly low light. The front camera has a portrait mode as well as the rear camera having a portrait mode. So both work. Not bad. You know, I'd have to say pretty decent in the cutout itself. And the portrait mode actually works on subjects, not just people. So I actually shot this room over here, and I focused on the chair, and it blurred out the background. So kind of cool. Video wise, you're looking at a 1080p 60 is what it can do at maximum. We did shoot some stuff at 1080p 60, but most of it we shot at 1080p 30. Again, decent. It seems to be nice and smooth. The colors are really good on it. The stability is decent on it. Again, the main camera, if you are using the main camera, you are going to get that optical image stabilization. If you go to any of the other cameras, you will lose that. The only issue I had was in regards to, I believe there was a time in this room here where I have windows on the side. When I was scanning from here where it got a good exposure and I moved it over here, you would see it had issues auto exposing again for the bright light coming through the window. I just clicked on the screen and brought the exposure down and we were fine, but just realized that that happened. When it was outdoors, the exposure was great. So it seems when it has nice constant light, no matter what it is, works really well. If you are in an area with, let's say, a dark section and it exposes for that, it can have a little bit of issues with a bright area and a really dark area, trying to figure out which one it should be exposing for. So it is something that you may have to manually adjust, but very easy to do, nice and easy. Just tap on the screen and bring the exposure down. So in regards to video, I thought it did decent. Would I like to see 4K? For sure, 1080p is kind of minimum right now. 4K is what I would love to see on this phone. But again, you have to look at price point and the category that it's in. So because it's sitting at mid-range, 1080p with optical image stabilizing, probably for the majority of people out there, it's going to be more than enough. If you need more than that, you always have flagship phones that you can look at. You know what? I like it. The biggest thing for me is the physical change, at least from my experience with Poco phones, to the actual design. Going from a phone that's more rounded corners to something that is definitely got more hard edges to it. I like this. I'm a big fan of the hard edges. For me, I get a better and easier way to grip the phone, which I really like. I love the size of it. It's a nice large phone, which is good. For some reason, this light up fingerprint scanner, I just think is just a whole bunch of awesome. So for those of you that stuck around this long and are curious a little bit about some of the other specs, I'm just gonna read some off to you so that you know. Performance-wise, this is running a Helio G99 Ultra, a 6nm manufacturing process. It's got an octa-core GPU up to 2.2 gigahertz, as we saw in the actual benchmark. It's an ARM Mali G57 MC2 GPU. Again, you can get this phone in either an 8 gig with 256 gigs of internal storage, or a 12 gig with 512 gigs of internal storage, which is the one I got. Expandable storage up to 1 terabyte, I would think via a micro SD card. You have a 6.67 inch display, AMOLED, 120 hertz with a 2160 hertz instant touch sampling rate. So the sampling rate for how fast it responds to touch is nice and fast. 5 million to 1 contrast ratio, 2400 by 1080 resolution. It's a DCI P3 wide color gamut screen, Corning a Gorilla Glass 5. Camera, again, we talked about. Battery charging, it's a 5000 milliamp battery, 67 watt turbocharging, and 67 watt inbox charger. So again, it comes with everything. Now just be aware again that the model that I got was not a US based charger, so you may have to get an adapter. I'm not sure. This may depend on where you actually purchase it from. It does support dual 4G, 3G, 2G, LTE, wireless connectivity of Bluetooth 5.2, Wi-Fi protocols of 802.11a, b, g, n, and AC, and 2.4 gig and 5 gig networks. In-screen fingerprint sensor, dual speakers, AI face unlock, IR blaster, supports NFC. So it did have that during the startup phase. It did ask if I wanted to set up a card for Google Pay. I did not, but it is there, which is nice. A 3.5mm headphone jack. Headphone jack. Yeah, headphone jack. Wow, an IP54 splash proof protection. So if any of those specs are something that you're like, yeah, cool, then this is the phone for you. In regards to just usability, I think it works really good, and I'd have no problems using this as a daily driver. I don't have huge needs. The only thing for me that this is, of course, missing, and really the only reason that I primarily upgrade my phones, is camera features. So I'd love to see this have 4K. I'd love to see this have, outside of the 64 megapixel main sensor, I'd love the other lenses to also be a bit better. But those are flagship based, right? If you had a flagship phone, then that wouldn't be an issue. All right, guys, I think bang for buck, this is a really great phone. I love the blue. I love the shape. And I'll put links to Poco's website down below, and you can take a look at it if you're interested. All right, my friends, we will see you guys next video. Poco M6 Pro. Global. Later.